Well, we're back at the station. I'll try and make it go a little quicker today. This is the overnight didn't stick situation. I'm checking the others. I need to get some more glue on that and put a clamp on it, I suppose. I will cut this and get it installed, get some resistors. Should find out what value those are. I'm a little nervous about them. I think they'd be fine. And then get the lights in place. Yeah, on with it. These were supposed to be self-adhesive. So I think in fairness, trying to glue anything to basically just primed wood is going to be tough. If I covered up the hole, I have. Well, we'll find it. We know where it is. Let's get that glued. Now we've got this one over here to do. It's still very, very sticky, just not sticking. Pop the lid on before I squeeze it everywhere. I haven't got a hotel key handy, that's why I'm using this piece of stiff paper, which I shall immediately throw away so I don't lean on it with a clean sweater. Now, I just dropped it on my shoe. Let's just check all the others are stuck. Yeah, those feel good. I'm a little skeptical that these are going to stay stuck. You know how it is with self-adhesive things. They have this nasty habit of waiting until they're in the most inaccessible place and then peeling off. And I did paint the wood exactly for that reason. Now I am going to stick these lights in. Let me show you what I'm on. I love when Shadow comes running in and she can't get traction on the floor, so she comes flying in and wheel spins. But she's a little calmer today. Well, she's antsy still, but she's not racing around like a dervish. Now, I don't like the way the LEDs sit in these things, but actually when they're illuminated, they're fine. You just have to make sure they're glued in level. So that'll be my next job, making sure both of those are in and glued. These wires are relatively easy to shorten. I've got to get this styrene in. I'm thinking of painting it first. I think I'll do that. Paint it. Well, no, because then I've got to glue to the back of it. Yeah. Oh, the decisions. What I'm going to do is put it down on something and paint 3 sides and leave the other one blank and hope I've still got something to glue to. Well, this is rather a lovely find. It's a piece of packaging and just right for a locomotive cradle, but I'm going to paint on the back of it. It's a nice soft surface and I can pin things to it. That's what I'm up to for the next few minutes. You don't need to see me painting styrene. Acrylic paint, what is this? It just says flat black, which will be the right color at least. I'll see you when it's done. This is I paint everything brown just so I don't get bits of white light wood sticking up. I've got a little bit of clean up to do on the edge. But underneath bridges, even today, after all these years, you still see soot. So I'm not going to get into detailing, but we are going to paint it black. It might aid things sticking to it too. Probably should have thought about that before I stuck the paper on, but nevertheless, this will now go black. It'll help me cover up these bits and pieces. So I've got plenty of paint. I'm not going to paint it up there because inevitably I'll drip it onto the platform if I do. So that's the next thing. Oh, the styrene strips. They're done down here with the flickering light above them. This is not uncommon practice for me, just to rest it in a drawer because of the bit sticking down the other way, and it's stable there. I'll put a bit of paper underneath so it doesn't get all over whatever in the drawer, and we'll go from there. Big old brush. How do you stop it getting on the bricks? Put a steel ruler up against it, and then don't paint off the end, which I did. But yeah, nice sharp line without using masking tape. And now we get to wait for paint to dry. Well, being acrylic, it will dry very quickly. These styrene rods are almost done. A bit of paint on the back, of course. I'll just scrape that off. If for no other reason, that the one place that there is paint will be exactly where I want to glue things. Well, sometime later, this is now very least touch dry. It's more of a satin finish than a matte. I'd hoped it would be matte. Styrene strips. Yeah, not great. May need another coat, but we're going to put them in anyway. We're going to have to paint over the wires later. Good. Well, let's get this in. Now, how do you got covered? Oh, I see. I was going to say, how did you get covered up? But there's never been anything through this one. Lovely. Well, there's one. Looks like it's supposed to be there. Looks like you're upside down. You're not. The board's still that way up. This paper definitely isn't sticking well. I will trim all of this off once it's in place. But remember, we're never going to see the back of it unless I run a camera train through, and I have no intentions of doing that. Right, let's trim this off. There's going to have to be some compromise with the hole usage. I've got to get that back through. Yeah. Looks terrible from this side, doesn't it? Makes me nervous, but it really is all right the other side. I will trim that off. Do you like my new knife? Not sure if I do yet or not. It's smaller than the other one. And as always, we start at the back and work to the front so that by the time we get over there, we'll know what we're doing and it will look better. Yeah, that's not sticking. I'm just going to trim that off. Yeah, one of the drawbacks, there's another one here, they're getting everywhere, is that this enameled wire is very difficult to trim back. You can trim it back and then scrape, but it really doesn't work well. Now, it's very easy to make a mistake here. I just missed. I was about to glue the lights in this end, knowing that the board's upside down, but it isn't upside down that way. It's upside down that way. So this is obviously the back, and so the lights go on this end. So very nearly glued them in the wrong way. What I'm intending to do is just work from this end this way, picking up the wires as I go until they're all a big bunch of them at this end, which is going to be right where the stairwell is, and the stairwell is going to come down that way. So I should be able to hide the connection to the outside world and the resistors in that stairwell. I could wire up each of these LEDs just with one resistor. I'm not going to do that. Each LED will have its own. It's a principle I've used for a long time, and it's stood me in good stead. When one of them goes short circuit, it burns out the resistor. You end up with a little smell, a puff of smoke or whatever, or it just stops working. Where if you put them in series, one goes out, they all go out. So we don't want that. And these things are mass-produced, dirt cheap, and have a likelihood of failing, I would think, after I've been fooling around with them. So start at this end, work this way, end up with a mess here, and work out how to deal with that mess. Yeah. Kick the can down the road, it's known as, isn't it? These things, I've just glued that with some impact adhesive, and it's still not sticking. This is, I'm anticipating trouble with that stuff. Yes. Now this first one, of course, will have longer wires. These are very trimmable. Once that first one, this will jam in that hole with the back end of this. This is why it's big, so that I can jam this in there. But yeah, I probably should test it and make sure it works before I glue it in there. Let's do that. I've got a work light hanging above the tripod. I don't have any filming lights in here. They're all in the little studio I have next door. One of these days I'll get set up in here so you can see properly. But for now, where's my battery? Here it is. And clips and so on. Just make sure that actually works. Come on. There's one end. Where's my other cable? There it is. Resistor. That fell straight back off again. Resistor, there we go. The red one over here. Yeah, it's working. Yeah, that'll work. Good, so now let's get that glued in. So before I actually glue, can I move you? I might be able to, it might help. So this one, I hit that with paint. Always one, isn't there? Just right where you don't want it to. But it'll be fine. Before I glue that in, this one here is the first LED. And I'm just making sure I can get that in and wondering where the wires are going to end up. Now before I glue this one in, let me zoom in on the next one over. This one here is the light. Kind of want the light bulb on the bottom, so this side. But the cable's on the back of here. That's going to be an interesting glue. And then watching where they end up. Now the resistor ends up lining up with the next hole. You can see it. Let me see if I can move you over just a bit. Yeah, so the resistor ends up there. I don't think there's going to be space for one. Let me try it. I don't think there's going to be space in the hole for a resistor. Remember I told you yesterday, was it? Or day before yesterday? No, you won't get a resistor in there, but they will glue onto the back of here. We hope. Let's get this styrene strip in place and this first light. So first thing, glue this one in, shove the styrene rod in the back of it, make sure everything's attached, and we'll go from there. Now, just in case you were wondering, I'm moving to PVA glue. it's wood in there, and if I ever want to get them out, I probably can using Elmer's school glue. Is basically PVA, isn't it? Water soluble, so that is what I'm going to use. The styrene, probably a polystyrene cement. I haven't seen proper Airfix glue for ages. I wonder if they still make it. Anyway, all I'm doing is gluing this into there and running the cables. It's in, and I've jammed the styrene strip in the back. Well, it does look like a big mess. These things always do though, don't they? What I'm doing is I'm threading a stiff wire through behind the styrene, and my intent is to solder either the positive or the negative, probably all of the resistors, onto this. So it will be the positive, because that's where I've got the first resistor, because it was a red wire. I wanted to lose it. And that will just mean that there are fewer wires, but I'm then going to have to hide this wire behind the styrene. I think we're going to be all right in the end, but it is a bit fiddly right at the beginning. Yeah, so get through there, come on. So if I solder this resistor, you're not at a good angle there. Let me take it off of the tripod and show you. So the first light is in. We've gone through the first buttress, solder the resistor right where the light will be, and then I can solder the resistor to the stiff wire there somewhere, and then we'll worry about the second light, the one that goes on there. Yes, and of course the other side, these will just all join together, so as soon as I can find somewhere to join that, I will. These are 680 ohm resistors. I would typically use 1000 ohms, but since these came with it, let's use them up. It really doesn't make a huge amount of difference. Very marginally brighter, because LEDs tend not to dim down linearly. That's a clever word, isn't it? Linearly, in a straight line. So they're much more on or off devices. Let's find a pair of tweezers. And that only because I can't get pliers in there. Right, a pair of tweezers. Now I'm going to use these that close on their own. Just going to hold on to that resistor. Now the idea is that not only do they hold it in place, but they also work as what's called a heat sink or a heat shunt. They take some of the heat away so that this, it's just a piece of carbon, and it's quite easy to undo that joint as you're doing this one up when you've got the leads as short as I do. There we go. And for my next trick, we will hide that somewhere there. That's going to be glued on. Let's get the next one in. We'll tidy up as we go, of course. So we're going to poke these wires through that hole. I wish this were channel, a U-channel instead of solid piece. Bit late now, Ian. And I did say I wasn't going to order stuff and wait for 3 weeks or whatever for it to come. There we are. Now these look like bare wires. They're not. They're covered in enamel. So they'll be just fine. So we can tidy that up. Is it going to work? We need to fire that up just to see, don't we? I've got the battery hooked up and a resistor in line. Yeah, that'll be fine. Just need to find a way of gluing it onto the styrene. For my next trick, one of those situations where the LED sitting where I want it means that the connections, I don't know if you can see that, connections are right at the end there. So we're going to have to fold the wire or something. Well, what I've done is I've cut the wire. I told you you can't. Well, you can, but you then have to scratch off the enamel that's right there. The reason this is a problem is because the end of the wire is soldered to the LED. So this is, and I would not be able to resolder that if it comes off. So yeah, a little bit tricky working with these minute pieces, but we're giving it a go. I've gone in as close as I can. The little yellow blob at this end is the LED. Right here is the resistor, which is soldered under there. You can see goop. That's paint up my fingernail. Look at that. That's disgusting. But I've soldered the resistor right there. And then the end of this resistor will go to the positive rail. And then this one, the silver one, will go to wherever it reaches. And we'll have to cover the end up. So a little bit of heat shrink tubing. And I'm guessing I'm going to have to repeat this a number of times. Of course, I did not do that on the very first one because there's nothing there for it to touch. Now, I'm going to try this super glue. I really don't like super glue. I don't think Yoo-hoo is going to cut it in this instance. Blob of super glue. Now then, how are we going to hold that in place? That's not in place, it's over the top. There. Let's see if one of these clamps will help. Yep, perfect. Is it touching? Yes, it is. Does it work? Well, we can't try it right now. That's probably going to be the worst of it. Other than I've got one wire that should have gone through that hole and hasn't. That's going to be interesting. All right, just to show you what I'm up to. This is my tweezers holding, that's the end of the resistor that comes from under there. Well, it's this resistor, and so the leg of that comes through the hole. I've bent the wire intentionally away from the styrene so I don't melt it, and I'll be able to give it a tug from the right to straighten it all back out later. So the tweezers in theory are going to hold those two together. I can't make them do it and hold the camera, so you're not going to see the next bit. So that's the solder joint. Should be able to take this off. Yep. That's fine. And we'll prove it by putting some power up there and see what happens. Well, it was going so well too, then I noticed that the glue hadn't held the LED. So now I've got those clampy tweezers holding it, and that's going to take a while. It's frustrating because I dare not move anything until that glue sets, and I don't have time to wait around for an hour, an arch. Yes, got to come up with a glue that actually works. Black tack. Oh, but light doesn't shine through that. Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. The lights are all in and working. We all make mistakes. The mistake I made was I've been using plus to minus, plus to minus, plus to minus, and then on the last one, for some reason, went minus to plus. So took me a minute to sort that out. Little pin there. I'm just going to paint over it. The wires go counterintuitively that way through to the top. That should come up underneath the station building. We'll be able to weave our way through that and then get back down to the other side. It has worked out that I need glue and I just don't have it. I probably should mix up some poo-tart, a two-part epoxy or something. There's no strength required. They've just got to stay in the right place. I'm just going to cover over the shiny with some paint. It'll be interesting to see what it looks like from the other side. I haven't seen it. Well, from over there, it doesn't look too bad. You've just got a rod with a light sticking on it. And when the light's on, it's amazingly forgiving because all of this, of course, will go into silhouette. But I will paint up the back and see the silver wire right there. I'll catch that with some black paint. I will turn it over then and we'll have a look, see what it looks like. Well, there you go. That's the back row. Also, can you see the difference between the two stairwells? One has a light in it, one doesn't. You see it flashing at the back there? So that's going to look good too. So it's coming along nicely. It is tediously long to do. So I'm just going to crack on, get this front piece done as quickly as I can and call it a day. And we'll put the front in and see what it looks like. And now I'm asking myself, what did I learn from the one at the back, which is less visible, that I can sort out at the front, which is going to be more visible? I think the biggest thing is I would have made a bigger hole between the pillars. It's kind of awkward getting all of the wires between there. The other thing is this paper really hasn't stuck. We'll see what happens. But I've got this front one to do now, and should take me, well, probably half an hour if I don't get distracted. Well, I probably should have thought of a different way of doing this. However, it's I've started, so I'll finish. It's kind of tight in there, so the little work lamp that sticks out of the end. So I'm working this way this time, of course. It sticks through, but the wires aren't long enough. They get through here. But they've got to be trimmed back. So the other diode that's got to go there, I've already got it in, but not positioned. I've got to join those two together and cover them up with some heat shrink. Otherwise, that connection there stands a chance of coming into contact with those. So you have the plus from this light resistor, stiff wire, the LED resistor, which is snugged up under there. Can I make that? Yeah, there, you see it there. So that's right up against the hole. Let me show you how those look like. So this is what they look like. I really don't like having to trim the wires on this stuff. It's enameled, so you've got to cut it, put it in something that's going to hold everything still, then scrape off the enamel. Yeah, it's quite a game. But, you know, somebody was saying in the comments the other day, well, if you can't do it, how do you expect us to do it? I'm no expert at putting lights in toy arches. I know what I've got to do, and so we figure it out. This is all about showing what I do and how we overcome problems and overcome things together. So I'm showing you what I'm up to. I've got the heat shrink already on there. That's something I forgot on one of them over the other side. So once I've put those together, the heat shrink will go on. Let me show you the soldering process. I was showing you how I was soldering this joint here and putting heat shrink on and all that good stuff. And what I did is I put the camera over here, and as I did, I hit stop. So I didn't get it. I'll do the next one for you when we get there. But that's what it looks like until I shrink down that heat shrink and get these wires tidied up. It's quite a bit to hide behind that piece of styrene, but it sort of works. Well, here's something that looks interesting. Do you see these two wires next to each other? And then there's another one there. There's three wires. They look like there's three bare wires going through a hole. They're not. Two of them are. The third one is enameled. And it really doesn't matter if if this one and that one touch, because I'm going to solder that one to that one over there. So it looks scary to anybody that knows anything about electrical work, but once I snug that up, do you see that? Nothing can actually touch that is conductive. Yeah, still like keyhole surgery. Look at the size of my finger in comparison to all of that. Well, I'm trying to show you the keyhole surgery that's going on. Bit of a blobby on the end of that. What I'm going to do is just pop a piece of heat shrink on the wire. Now I've got to get this black wire and this silver wire joined to this one, and it's going to end up in there somewhere. So let's try and thread this one through the hole. I have to remember we're working backwards. There it comes there, do you see? There. So I want to hide it on that side, if at all possible. So this is the wire and this is the wire that need to join to this. And that's going to be right up against this post here. I can put a kink in this wire to shorten it if necessary, but I'm still going to try, and yeah, we're going to have to do that because I want to trim this one back. That looks a bit sketchy, doesn't it? I'm just going to drop that black wire onto the minus there. And yes, so we got the first three in. I'm still trying to show you what I'm up to. The LED, which is, you can see it just off the screen, you can see where my screwdriver is, that's where the LED is. But the leg of it ends up right there. And this wire is what we call the bus. And so I've got a little bit of control over where it sits by holding on to this wire here. But I've got to join those two together. This could get interesting, but we'll try it. Here we go. Ooh. Tempting fate, aren't I? I think I got it. Let's try it and see. There you go. I've got to glue the roof back on that one. I managed to knock it off. Stairwells are lit, and look what happens underneath. Yeah. It'll look lovely. Well, I suppose the next thing is to put the bridges on, but I love the way the light reflects on the rails and is dulled down by the sooty roof. We won't see that much, of course, but yeah, turned out quite well. We're getting there. It's a long, slow process. The station underpass, what do you call that? Underworld. That is lit. Lots to do, of course, on the top. Next time we'll be working with the station building. Unless I get distracted with something else, of course. I do have to put those people in one of the underground trains. Maybe that will be next. Thanks for watching. Hit that like and subscribe if you like it. And I really think we need to get the canopy on that station and have a running session. Of course, the canopies need lights too, don't they? See you next time.